What's up, nerds? Welcome to Cartoon Universe, welcome to Wildmount, and it's finally happened, folks. Halfway through the show, The Mighty Nein, in the 4th episode entitled The Mighty Nein have finally become The Mighty Nein. And now that they've finally taken on the title, I have to say, an inaccurately numbered group name is one of my favorite niche jokes in fiction. I love you, Four Town from Turning Red with your 5 members. I love you, Rowdy 3 from Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, all 4 of you. And hey, this time people being confused about how many characters a Critical Role show is supposed to have is an intentional part of the joke and not because a problem character had to be written out of existence. We don't talk about Tiberius, no. Now before we dig into our cast of characters, some introductions, clarifications, and a request. My name is Elle, and I like Dungeons & Dragons, an appreciation I've brought to covering the show The Mighty Nein, which is based on D&D actual play series Critical Role. I'm in an interesting spot to break down this show, as while I'm a fan of the game it's set in, I haven't seen the campaign it's based on. I know the building blocks of the world and characters, but how they're arranged is a surprise to me. This brings us to how I'd like to deal with spoilers for this series. For those coming to these videos from the TV show, I will be openly discussing the events of new episodes and speculating about what might come next, so keep that in mind if you truly want to go in blind. And for those coming here from the original campaign, I myself would like to go in as blind as possible to judge the series on its own merits. So while I'm not going to stop any discussions in the comments, I will ask you to mark any campaign spoilers for my sake and for other new fans. Does everyone understand? Are we in agreement? Alrighty then, let's break it down. With the world and characters solidly developed in the first 3 episodes, this is when they really start weaving together, particularly among our core cast as they've finally been forced together. The dynamics formed so far run the gamut from funny to profound. Jester and Nott serve as Fjord's shoulder angel and devil, Mollymauk juggles grieving his old life while running towards the new, Caleb brings out Beau's bookish side. Everyone is motivated towards the same goal, but with different motivations. Everyone's skills are on display, but so are everyone's weaknesses. If you're familiar with Tuckman's model of group development, this party is leaning hard into the storming phase. You know what? I've already talked at length in prior videos about how these characters function narratively, and as we see them leap into action together this episode, this seems a perfect opportunity to do something I maybe should have been doing from the start. Because this is a TV show, yes, but it's based on a game. We've looked at how these characters are written, let's talk about how they're played. I'll be breaking down each of our 6 leads' race, class, and abilities, exploring how they play in the game of Dungeons & Dragons and how they live up to or defy expectations of their construction. Going in order of appearance, we start with Caleb, human wizard. Humans in D&D are pretty much your bog standard option. No special strengths or weaknesses, not particularly good or bad at anything on a base level. Some people see them as boring, I prefer to think of them as versatile. They're a blank slate onto which you can construct just about anything, though admittedly, as a human in real life, I'm biased. There are also the variant human rules to let players specialize their stats a bit more, though I couldn't say if that's happening here. I could go to the Critical Role wiki and check, but I'm not doing that for 2 reasons. Number 1, I enjoy the challenge of working with just what the show gives me, which if it's doing its job shouldn't be too misleading. And number 2, every time I've gone on that wiki to fact check something, I've gotten something spoiled, so we have both professional and personal beef. To Caleb, as he discussed with Fjord this episode, wizards learn magic through study, learning spells and using components to access the arcane power of the world around them. Wizards typically spec into specific schools of magic, not referring to literal schools like Caleb's apparent history with the Soltris Academy, but spheres of magical influence. If I had to guess at Caleb's primary abilities, based on the prevalence of fire, I'd say evocation, elemental magic, but with all the different ways things can be reflavored in D&D, I wouldn't be surprised if he mentioned conjuration, transmutation, or even necromancy. It's also consistent with D&D to see Caleb keeping his distance in combat. While they aren't as squishy as they used to be, wizards and other magic-focused classes can't take the kinds of hits a fighter or barbarian might shrug off. Ranged casting is important. To quote Big D, wizards are nerds you can easily punch. Regarding Caleb's depiction, in both his Volstrucker past, which I'm proud to say I called, and his Dirt Wizard present, he deviates pretty heavily from the standard academic mold of D&D wizardry, though based on his love of study, it sounds like he might have preferred the classic path. Moving on, we have Nott, our goblin rogue. When D&D was first published in 1974, it focused on your standard Tolkien races for player characters: humans, elves, dwarves, and halflings. As the game developed, more options were made available to players, from the more esoteric, such as the cat-like Tabaxi and crow-mimic Kenku, to flipping the script on traditionally evil races, such as orcs, bugbears, and goblins. That said, goblins are still featured in the monster manual, and the people of Wildemount certainly seem to treat Nott that way. Abilities-wise, goblins have natural night vision, or dark vision as D&D calls it. Their small size makes them very nimble and stealthy, and they can get an extra attack damage on creatures larger than them. This makes them natural rogues, the class all about sneakery, the thieves, spies, and assassins of D&D. While rogues are great for stealth missions and dungeon crawls, they're not the most effective in a head-on monster mash like in this episode. So rather than try to force Nott into the fight, the show instead had her focus on evacuating the victim, doing so in a way that revealed an interesting twist to her portrayal. It's an often mocked cliche for rogues to be orphans, but while people around Nott refer to her as a child, this assumption reads more like others being unfamiliar with or dismissive of goblins, who do have rather short lifespans in D&D, and the way Nott acted towards Toya during the rescue, I have to wonder if, instead of losing her parents, she's lost a child. Also, it's wonderful to see that the show isn't treating Nott's alcoholism like a joke or moral failing, and instead the life-altering addiction that it is. Next up, we have Beau, the human monk. Now, when D&D says monk, think less Christian monk, bookworms in robes and tonsures, and more Shaolin monk, kung fu master. While players can certainly flavor their monks to be more studious and spiritual, like many of Beau's Cobalt Soul peers, their primary role in the class lineup is the martial artist. Monks focus on unarmed or lightly armed combat, leaning heavily on mobility and defense, with movement bonuses for going unarmored and earning damage resistances at higher levels. And their spiritual focus is expressed as key points, energy they can spend on extra attacks or dodging. As neutral keepers of law and lore, the Cobalt Soul is outwardly a fairly standard monk organization, though as we've seen they lack the incorruptibility that should characterize their class. Beau, meanwhile, may not be a conventional Cobalt Soul in her irreverent demeanor, and abilities-wise I can't speak to which of the monastic traditions she follows, but her physical prowess and indomitable will are textbook D&D monk. This brings us to Fjord, our half-orc warlock. There are a lot of half-races players can pick, and the default assumption is that the other half is human, which seems to be the case for Fjord, but there's always room for more mixing and matching. Socially, half-orcs often get the short end of the stick due to the tension between their parent races, which we've seen take its toll on Fjord, which may influence his difficulty harnessing his magic, as many warlock abilities rely on the charisma stat. Though mechanically, half-orcs are built to last, with boosted strength, intimidation, critical damage, and the relentless endurance ability, which basically lets them say no to dying. By contrast, Fjord is a warlock, a magic-focused class, which, as we've discussed, tend not to focus on the physical. Rather than being contradictory, though, Fjord seems to have struck a good balance of abilities, with his attachment to his sword indicating a Hexblade patron, a more combat-focused warlock pact. Which brings us to how warlocks gain their abilities. Unlike wizards who channel ambient magic, warlocks make deals with powerful magical entities, borrowing their patron's power for a price. And while not all warlocks patrons are dark and mysterious, Fjord certainly seems to be a classic deal with the devil, one he didn't even know he was making. While his shapeshifting ability isn't one I'm familiar with, we've seen Fjord use some classic warlock spells so far, such as Misty Step and Eldritch Blast, albeit not very effectively. That's a nat 1 if ever I've seen it. Though he made up for it with that Predator reference. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you know I'm a Predhead. But warlocks aren't the only ones getting abilities from higher powers. Let's talk about Jester, the tiefling cleric. Tieflings are essentially demi-devils, people with infernal blood. This can happen the traditional way by having a demonic ancestor, but it could also be the effect of an infernal curse or a non-demon forebear doing so much dark magic it bled into their bloodline. So who knows where Jester and her mom get it from. Tieflings can theoretically look like anything with suitably spooky vibes, but the horns and tail look is a classic, and they get bonuses to charisma, useful in a society that often looks down on them, and inherent fire resistance, with other buffs and magical affinities available depending on their specific dark heritage. Despite this infernal association, Jester has managed to become a cleric, a devotee of the divine, albeit an unconventional one. Clerics are holy people, empowered by their faith in their god, typically channeling their casting power towards healing and defense. While some clerics can be more combat-focused, that's better left to their martial counterpart, the paladins. If you're looking for a support class, cleric is a great choice. While a classic cleric follows the typical life, light, and order modes of divinity, the D&D pantheon has plenty of other gods to choose from, and if Jester doesn't follow the trickery domain, I'll eat my dice. I love Jester's personal relationship with her god the Traveler and with her magic. We've seen her cast some classic cleric spells such as spiritual weapons, spirit guardians, and both major and minor healing spells, but she has undeniably made them her own, particularly in the Traveler's absence. In terms of cleric conflicts, a crisis of faith is always fun. Critical Role has done it before in Vox Machina with Pike and the Everlight, but with how different Jester's faith is to Pike's, even if they do it again, it's sure to be new and different. And then there's Mollymauk, the tiefling blood hunter, the guy I can talk the least about. Where all the other characters so far have used standard D&D classes, Blood Hunter is a homebrew class created for this character in this series. For a quick definition, in TTRPGs, a game element is homebrewed when it is created by the players rather than something officially published in the game. If you play Monopoly with house rules, congratulations, that's homebrew. Since this character class originated with this story, it's practically impossible to research without spoilers, and frankly, I'm enjoying the mystery. It's fun to see things I recognize in other characters, but it's also fun to be surprised. From what we've seen so far, Blood Hunter seems to be a hybrid of martial and casting abilities, gaining knowledge and power from blood. And I look forward to learning alongside Molly, who seems to know roughly as much as I do about his own skills. All in all, with all the background context and adaptation compression demanded by the source material, this show has been doing great organically weaving explanations into its text and trusting the audience to pick up plot threads and follow along with information. That said, I could see how someone unfamiliar with the systems or genre might get lost at points where audience understanding is assumed. If that's you, I hope this video has helped. I'll be cooking up more of these character explorations as we go forward. I'll definitely do one for Yasha when she finally shows up for real, and perhaps Essek will get one someday. Based on the tension between him and Ikathon this episode, I have to wonder if I was right the first time when I thought he might join the party. We'll have to wait and see if that happens, and how our freshly befriended lineup of losers gets out of their latest jam. I'll be breaking that down once it happens, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. If this video helped you or just kept you entertained, give it a thumbs up and check out some more from the channel. If you have your own thoughts to share or breakdowns to request, leave a comment below, remember to mark your spoilers, and check the pinned comment to join the Cartoon Universe Discord server. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and may all your party comp be worthy of the Golden Girls.